You are standing on the deck of a merchant vessel. The sun is high. The Caribbean air is thick with salt and heat. You hear the lookout scream first. A single word that stops your heart. Pirates, you turn. 3 ships are closing fast. Black flags snapping in the wind. Skull and crossbones. Red flags meaning no quarter given. No mercy. No survivors unless they decide otherwise. The crew around you scrambles. Some grab weapons. Others freeze. Your father, the ship's captain, is shouting orders, but his voice cracks. You can hear the fear underneath. You are 16 years old. You have never seen combat. You have never seen death. In the next 20 minutes, you will see both. And what comes after will make you wish death had found you first. The pirates close the distance impossibly fast. Their ships are built for speed. Yours is built for cargo. There is no outrunning them. Cannon fire erupts. The sound is deafening. Wood explodes around you. Splinters become shrapnel. A sailor near you takes a piece through his throat. He drops without a sound. Blood spreads across the deck. More cannon fire. The mainmast cracks, tilts, crashes down. Rigging falls like a net. Men are crushed beneath it, screaming now everywhere. Then the grappling hooks come. Iron claws bite into your ship's rails. Ropes pull tight. The distance between vessels disappears. Pirates flood across. Dozens of them, cutlasses drawn, pistols firing. They move with practiced efficiency. This is not their first raid. It will not be their last. Your father raises his sword. A pirate shoots him in the chest. He falls. You try to reach him. Hands grab you from behind. You are lifted off your feet. You scream. No one cares. The battle is over in minutes. Most of the crew is dead. A few survivors are on their knees. The pirates are laughing, celebrating, claiming their prize. One of them, a man with a scarred face and rotting teeth, looks at you differently than he looks at the cargo. His eyes move over your body slowly. He smiles. That smile tells you everything. You are not cargo. You are something worse. You have just become the property of men who operate beyond every law, every moral boundary, every shred of human decency. What happens next, historians will sanitize in textbooks. They will use words like captive and prisoner. They will avoid the details, but the details are where the truth lives. If this story matters to you, subscribe to Echoes Through History because we tell the stories others refuse to speak aloud. You know the romanticized version. Pirates of the Caribbean made them charming rogues. Jack Sparrow with his swagger and wit. Treasure maps and adventure. Sword fights with honor. Hollywood gave us fantasy. History gives us something far darker. Between roughly 1650 and 1730, the golden age of piracy, thousands of ships were attacked in Caribbean waters and along the Atlantic coast. Merchant vessels, slave ships, naval frigates, nothing was safe. Pirates operated as floating kingdoms beyond any nation's control. They made their own laws, enforced their own justice. And when they took women captive, those women entered a world where the rules of civilization no longer applied. Most pirate crews operated under articles, written codes governing behavior and profit distribution. These articles addressed combat, treasure division, discipline. Some even included rules about women. But those rules were not protections. They were procedures for managing property. The most common article regarding women stated that any man who brought a woman aboard without crew consent would be marooned or executed. This sounds like a prohibition. It was not. It was a rule about permission, about collective ownership rather than individual claim. If the crew agreed, women could be brought aboard, and once aboard, they belonged to everyone. Bartholomew Roberts, one of the most successful pirates in history, included in his articles that any man who seduced a woman and brought her to sea in disguise would suffer death. Note the language, seduced, as if consent was the issue, as if the crime was deception rather than what happened after. Edward Lowe, known even among pirates for his cruelty, kept no such articles. His crew took women whenever they pleased. What they did with them was documented in survivor testimony and trial records. The accounts are difficult to read. They should be difficult to read. Comfort would be a betrayal of what these women endured. When pirates took a ship, they assessed its value immediately. Cargo was sorted: gold, silver, spices, anything portable and valuable. Crew members were evaluated. Skilled sailors, carpenters, doctors were often pressed into service. Join or die, most joined, but women presented a different calculation. They had no skills pirates needed. They could not navigate or repair ships. They were not fighters. Their value lay elsewhere. And that value was understood instantly by every man on deck. If the captured ship carried only 1 or 2 women, the situation often turned violent immediately. Multiple men claiming the same prize. Fights broke out. Pirates killed each other over access. Captains sometimes intervened, not out of mercy, but to prevent their crews from destroying themselves. The solution was rotation, scheduled access, turn-taking. The woman became communal property on a timetable. If multiple women were captured, they were distributed. Senior crew members, those with higher shares of plunder, received first choice. Then officers, then the rest of the crew in order of rank. The women had no say. They were divided like any other cargo, assigned to men who now owned them completely. What happened next occurred below deck, in cramped quarters that stank of unwashed bodies, rotting wood, and bilge water. There are no detailed records written by the pirates themselves. They did not document these acts, but there are trial testimonies, survivor accounts, depositions given when pirates were finally captured and brought to justice. In 1720, Calico Jack Rackham's crew was captured in Jamaica. Among the prisoners were 2 women, Anne Bonny and Mary Read, who had fought as pirates themselves. During the trial, witnesses described what they had seen aboard pirate vessels. Women kept in the hold, women who screamed at night. Women who emerged days later unable to walk properly, unable to speak, staring at nothing. One witness, a merchant sailor who survived a pirate attack, testified that he heard a woman begging for death, that her cries continued for hours until they stopped. Not because the men stopped, because she stopped making sounds. Another account from 1722 describes a French merchant ship attacked off Martinique. The ship carried the wife of a colonial administrator and her teenage daughter. Pirates took both. The mother was found 3 days later when a naval vessel recaptured the pirate ship. She was alive, barely. She refused to speak about what happened. Her daughter was not found alive. The official report listed her as killed during the attack, but crew testimony suggested otherwise. She had been seen alive after the battle. She was not alive when the ship was retaken. What happened in between was left officially unrecorded. Unofficially, the sailors knew. They always knew. The duration of captivity varied. Some women were kept for days, others for weeks, some for months, a few, horrifyingly, for years. Their survival depended on factors beyond their control. The captain's temperament, the crew's discipline, whether the woman was seen as valuable enough to keep alive, whether she was considered pretty enough to maintain, whether she fought back or submitted. Either choice carried consequences. Fighting back often resulted in immediate violence. Beatings, worse. But submission did not guarantee safety. It only changed the nature of the suffering. Some women were kept in the captain's quarters. This was considered a privilege by the crew, one man instead of many, but captains were not saviors. They were simply men who had claimed exclusive access. Edward Teach, Blackbeard himself, reportedly kept several women aboard his ship at various times. When he was finally killed in 1718, his ship was searched. Personal effects included women's clothing, jewelry, and items suggesting prolonged female presence aboard. No women were found alive on the ship. Their fate remains unknown. There are accounts of women who survived by making themselves useful. A captured woman who could cook might be kept alive to feed the crew. One who could sew and repair sails might earn marginal protection through labor. But usefulness did not mean safety. It meant delay. The same men she served by day still came for her at night. A few women, very few, survived by becoming pirates themselves. Anne Bonny and Mary Read are the most famous examples. Both disguised themselves as men initially. Both fought in combat. Both were described in trial records as being as fierce and ruthless as any male pirate. But their success was extraordinary precisely because it was so rare. The system did not create Anne Bonny. It destroyed thousands of women to produce one exception. And even Bonny's story ends in a courtroom where she was sentenced to hang, spared only by pregnancy. The child's father was almost certainly a pirate. Whether that pregnancy was chosen or forced, history does not record. For women who became pregnant during captivity, the situation grew even darker. Pirates had no use for infants. Children slowed ships down, required resources, created complications. Some women were simply thrown overboard once pregnancy became obvious. Others were abandoned on remote islands, left to die slowly from exposure and starvation. A few were kept until they gave birth, then the infant was killed and the woman returned to service. There is a documented case from 1724 of a woman found on a deserted island off the Bahamas. She had been there for an estimated 6 months. She was alone, barely alive. She had given birth at some point. The child's remains were found nearby. She never spoke again, not a word. Whatever happened to her, whatever she endured, she carried it silently until she died 2 years later in a colonial hospital. The attending physician noted in his records that she seemed relieved when death finally came. The geographical isolation of the Caribbean made escape nearly impossible. Even if a woman managed to get off a pirate ship, where would she go? They operated in open ocean, far from any coastline. The few islands they visited were pirate havens, lawless settlements where violence was currency and women were commodities. Port Royal in Jamaica before the earthquake. Nassau in the Bahamas before colonial authorities regained control. Tortuga off the coast of Hispaniola. These were not places where a woman could seek help. These were places where she would be claimed by someone else within hours. The pirate economy functioned on plunder. Everything was stolen, traded, sold. Women were part of that economy. A captured woman could be traded between crews, sold to plantation owners, gambled away in card games. Her body was currency. Her humanity was irrelevant. There are records of women being sold in pirate-controlled ports for prices ranging from a few bottles of rum to significant sums depending on age and appearance. The transactions were casual. Men haggled over women the same way they haggled over stolen silk or barrels of sugar. No different, no more significant. In 1716, a colonial governor in the Carolinas reported receiving information about a pirate auction in Nassau where 3 women were sold to the highest bidders. He sent a naval vessel to investigate. By the time it arrived, the pirates were gone. The women were never found. That pattern repeated constantly. Authorities received reports, ships were dispatched, pirates vanished, and the women disappeared into a system designed to consume them completely. The psychological destruction was as deliberate as the physical violence. Pirates understood that a woman who retained hope might resist, might cause problems, might find ways to escape or sabotage, so hope was targeted specifically. Women were told repeatedly that no one was coming, that their families believed them dead, that even if they escaped, no one would want them back. Damaged goods, ruined. This was not casual cruelty, it was strategic. Break the spirit and the body becomes easier to control. Some women internalized this completely. When rescue finally came, they did not celebrate. They did not feel relief. They felt shame. They felt worthless. Some refused to return home, convinced they no longer belonged anywhere. Colonial records contain multiple instances of rescued women who chose to remain in port towns rather than return to their families. They lived in the margins, worked in taverns or brothels, died young and unmourned. The pirates had destroyed them so thoroughly that even freedom felt like exile. Then there were the women who did not survive, the ones thrown overboard when they became inconvenient, the ones who died from injuries sustained during assault, the ones who contracted diseases in the filthy conditions below deck and were left to die without treatment, the ones who took their own lives when the suffering became unbearable. Jumping overboard was common. If your hands were not bound, if you were on deck for even a moment, the ocean offered an escape the pirates could not prevent. Some women chose it. Contemporary accounts describe pirates laughing as women threw themselves into the sea, placing bets on how long they would swim before drowning, making entertainment out of desperation. These deaths were never recorded officially. No graves, no markers, no one counting. They simply vanished into the Caribbean, joining thousands of others whose suffering left no trace. The legal system of the time offered almost no justice. When pirates were captured and tried, charges focused on piracy, murder, theft. Sexual violence against women was rarely mentioned in indictments, not because it did not happen, because it was not considered a priority. The legal framework of the 18th century did not treat rape as a serious crime, especially when the victims were women aboard ships in lawless waters. Even when women testified, their accounts were often dismissed or minimized. Defense attorneys argued that the women had consented, that they were prostitutes, that they were lying for attention. Juries, composed entirely of men, often sided with the accused. Many pirates were executed for theft and murder. Almost none were executed specifically for what they did to women. That crime evidently did not merit the rope. There is a documented trial from 1729 in London where a pirate crew was prosecuted for attacking a merchant vessel. Among the survivors was a woman who testified about being held captive for 11 days. She described in detail what was done to her. The courtroom was cleared during her testimony because it was deemed too inappropriate for public hearing. The pirates were convicted of piracy and hanged. The charges related to the woman were dropped because the judge ruled her testimony was too disturbing to be credible. Too disturbing to be credible, as if the horror of her account was evidence of fabrication rather than evidence of truth. She received no compensation, no apology, no acknowledgement. She simply disappeared from the record after the trial. Another woman erased by a system that refused to see her. The end of the golden age of piracy came not from moral awakening but from economic and military pressure. Naval patrols increased. Pirate havens were destroyed. Colonial authorities offered pardons to pirates who surrendered. Many took the deal. They walked away free men, retired to quiet lives. Some became respected members of colonial society. They married, raised families, died old and comfortable. The women they destroyed were never mentioned again. No one asked what happened to them. No one demanded accountability. The pirates who accepted pardons were not required to answer for sexual violence. That simply was not part of the conversation. They were judged on theft and murder. What they did to women was treated as incidental. Unfortunate perhaps, but not criminal in any way that mattered. Today, pirate history is sanitized. Museums display cutlasses and treasure maps. Films show swashbuckling adventure. Theme parks create family-friendly pirate experiences. Children dress as pirates for Halloween. The violence is made palatable. The truth is buried. But the women who suffered deserve more than erasure. They deserve to be remembered not as footnotes, not as unfortunate casualties, but as human beings who endured atrocities specifically because they were women in a world that treated them as objects. Their names are mostly lost. Records did not preserve them, but their suffering was real. Their terror was real. Their pain was real. And the fact that history chose to forget them does not make their experience any less significant. Somewhere in the Caribbean, beneath the blue water tourists swim in today, lie the remains of women who jumped from pirate ships. Their bones rest on the ocean floor, unrecorded and uncounted. Somewhere in the colonial archives are trial documents that mention women only in passing, reducing their trauma to single sentences. Somewhere in family histories are gaps, women who vanished at sea, their fates politely left unspoken. These absences are not accidents. They are the final act of violence. The complete erasure of victims so thoroughly that even their suffering disappears. The woman on the deck at the beginning of this story, the one whose father was shot, who was dragged below by men who saw her as spoils. We will never know her name. We will never know if she survived. We will never know how long she endured or how it ended. What we do know is this: she was real. She suffered. And for centuries, no one spoke her name or acknowledged what was done to her. That silence is not neutral. Silence protects perpetrators. Silence erases victims. Silence allows history to be rewritten into something comfortable, something entertaining, something that does not force us to confront the darkest capacities of human cruelty. So remember her. Remember all of them. The women who died at sea. The women who survived broken. The women who were sold, traded, discarded. The women whose stories were deliberately buried. They existed. They matter. And what happened to them was not adventure. It was not romance. It was horror, sustained and deliberate, carried out by men who faced no consequences and were later celebrated as legends. If this story mattered to you, if you believe these women deserve to be remembered, subscribe and leave a comment. Tell me where you are watching from and what time it is. Because the only way these stories survive is if we refuse to let them disappear. That may be the only memorial these women ever receive.